Listen to Shoot the Defence. It's unbelievable, Jeff.
Welcome to Shoot the Defence, brought to you by the FNX.Network and My Sportswear. I'm your host Stel, and joining me this evening is former Crystal Palace, Wolves and Reading midfielder Simon Osborn. Simon, great to have you back, mate. How's your summer?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, not bad at all. Obviously, we've had the Euros and the Olympics, so it's been busy. Glad the football season's back underway properly though, because I can't be doing with all these pre-season rubbish, if I'm honest with you. So. Yeah, good to get it back going again, and looking forward to getting out and watching a few games now.
Well, you've been there and done it with the whole pre-season thing. Us fans, as you know, you being a fan, you know what it's like to sit there and just watch it. But I guess when you were playing, you were just warming up and doing what you had to do, I guess.
Yeah, it's all part of it. You know you have to go through the process. Obviously, it changed a lot from the first times I started. You sort of came back in pre-season to get fit. Nowadays, you don't really lose your fitness. It's a case of sort of ticking over and keeping to a level, and then you're almost sort of fine-tuning yourself when you come back into pre-season. You know you've got to go through the rigmarole of the games and all that, but you know you get to the first game, you've done all the training pre-season, played all the pre-season games, and 20 minutes into the first game, the first competitive game, should I say, you're still breathing out of a couple of holes.
I can imagine. Tell me something. How many times did you see that fixture list when it came to pre-season and thought, oh God, I don't want to go there?
I just think you look at certain games and look at it and go, it's not the greatest of games, but then you've got to sort of put the shoe on the other foot and think, where's fitness? You know, I've done it all sorts of different ways. We've travelled places. I've trained in the morning and played in the evening, and you know, played 45 minutes of an evening after doing an hour and a half training session in the morning. All of those things, you know what the end goal is. You know, the first game of the season, you're trying to force your way into the team. You want to get fit. You want to steer clear of injuries as best you can, but you also want to impress in those games where you know, you might be looking at you're going to a non-league side somewhere, which is probably not the most glamorous of ties, but you want to be the one that shines, and the manager put yourself right in front of him, really, from early on in pre-season and cement that place.
So it's more like making an impression, really.
It's not making an impression. If you're new at a club, yes, it is. If you're already at a club, you just want to come back hungry, proving a point that you want to be in the starting lineup. You know, possession is 9/10, and if you get your name in the team sheet in the first game of the season, you want to keep it as long as you can.
Right, okay, well, before we discuss the weekend's games, I'd like to hear your views on two of your former clubs, being Wolves and Reading. Now, you know they've both had contrasting fortunes this summer, to say the least. Reading appointed the inexperienced Jaap Stam as head coach, while Wolves brought in Walter Zenga, which I think that's like his 16th club now. That's as far as the similarities go between the two. In July, I think Wolves were bought by the Chinese conglomerate, what they call Fosun International, and they've made 8 signings. Now, if we just step on Reading first, in comes Jaap Stam. He signed a 2-year deal. How long do you think he'll get there? I mean, they haven't started well either. I think, what was it, 1 win, 4 points, and they're 21st in the table.
Yeah, I think it was a brave decision, I think, to bring him in. I think he'd been working at Ajax in the reserve sort of side, under 23, whatever they call it out there now. So yes, it's a brave decision. Obviously, he's been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt as a player, as an international. So it was a big shock, I think, to people that they brought him in. Obviously, Brian McNurbert has come back into the club. I'm not a big fan of bringing back managers that have already previously worked at a football club. I think he's gone for a reason. You're sort of going back over old ground. I understand it sometimes that, you know, it's better the devil you know and so on and so forth. But I think it's a brave move. Obviously, they've let go of a few players. They've been underperforming, I think, for the last couple of years, obviously, since they come out of the Premiership. And I think they've looked at it and thought we're going to go a whole new different direction. If they're going to do that, you know, he needs the full 2 years. He needs this season to, as he's doing, bring in new players. They've made a couple of signs over the last couple of days. I think it's Liam Moore signed, and then we had signed today, and I can't even think his name's clear.
Tyler Blackett from United, is that one?
That's it. Sorry, yeah. He's obviously signed for Man U. So they are making some signings, and they're looking at progressing on. But again, you've got to get time. You look at the shelf life of managers, and it doesn't really last very long, does it? So if they've got a plan and a long-term plan, hopefully they'll stick with it.
Absolutely. And what about Wolves? New owners, new manager, and I believe super agent Jorge Mendes is kind of pulling their transfer market strings at the moment. It's exciting times ahead, or so you think?
Yeah, obviously they brought in Walter Zenga. You know, you've brought in 2 high-profile managers at Reading and Wolves. Walter Zenga probably not as well renowned as a manager, but has got a lot of experience, been around in the Middle East, obviously back in Italy, and so on and so forth. And as you say, they've been bought out. There is money at Wolves at this moment in time, and like you said, there's an awful lot of Portuguese players being mentioned and signed. George Mendes obviously is involved with this consortium, so he's the man at the moment pulling the strings, as you say, in the transfer market. They're looking at players at big values. I think, again, they've made another couple of signings in the last week. Texeira's come in, people like that. They brought the boy in from Iceland, obviously, who's made a bit of impression. And they've probably had the better of the two starts of the two clubs. I think they're unbeaten with 6 points. So there's an air of optimism at Wolves. Certainly, there's been a bit of doom and gloom over the last few years with the Morgan situation and what's been going on there. So it's a change. It's a change there now, and it'll be interesting to see how both clubs go.
Yeah, I think you can understand why the Wolves situation has been met with a bit of cynicism by some of the fans. You know, you do see it quite often where, you know, you've got a new owner takes over the club, makes all these promises, they bring in a few players, and then within 6 or 7 months, things just go to pot, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big problem you've got with that. Obviously, people are seeing Wolves as a sort of the money team at the moment. They still have an academy, they still have some players, and I think you still have to get that coming through the team to get that real spirit and the feeling of a football club, and I think the fans relate to that. You know, you go in there and throw loads and loads of money at players from, you know, and at the moment it seems to be foreign players, it's not going to work long term. I think that's the biggest problem. But like I said, you will see. The truth will be the next sort of 3 or 4 months of what they're doing and what they're not, what they sign and how they do. So, be interested.
Too soon to talk about promotion, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Fair enough. Okay, well, let's talk about the Premier League. And Manchester United survived some early Southampton pressure to beat the Saints 2-0. Zlatan Ibrahimovic netted the brace, which took a lot of the attention off Paul Pogba's second debut for the club. Simon, we haven't discussed the Pogba transfer on the show yet, so what was your initial reaction when the news broke of the deal, and how do you think he did on Friday?
I thought watching the game, for his first game of the season, obviously hasn't played very much in pre-season since obviously the World Cup final, which I thought, to be honest with you, is a little disappointing. I think we talked about it in the show, didn't we? Not long after, but I thought he done well. He got an awful lot of touches on the ball. He's got a certain arrogance, a certain swagger about him. Obviously, we all know the scenario of him leaving Man United at the time. It's just an awful lot of money. But in fairness to Paul Pogba, he's not the one who sets those fees. But I think he'll be a good player for Man United. He's got ability. Is he worth the money that we're talking about? I'm not sure. Is he a world-class player? Again, I'm not sure. But certainly what I saw on Friday night, he's going to be one of the players. And I think he added that little bit to Man United that we didn't see against Bournemouth. And I think he'll be a real good player for them. And he's certainly got something that Man United need.
I agree. And you know what? He's got a smile on his face, and it's something that I haven't seen from a player at United since, say, Dwight York, who always had a smile on his face, really. You know,
he's one of those players, you can see that he can get frustrated with other players, and that's obviously because he demands a lot and he's a good player. But I just think that, you know, he's gone into that team and he's added a little bit of something that they've probably missed. It's a bit of athleticism. I thought in the midfield, certainly against Bournemouth, watching that game, that they looked a little bit one-paced in there. And even in the game, and we're saying he's probably not even up to 100% yet, there was at times when we just injected that little bit of pace from midfield and bursting past people and committing players, midfielders and defenders, that I think he's going to be a real asset to Man U.
Yeah. And do you know what, Simon? I can actually see him being a future captain. I look at his Twitter and all that, and you see all the United youngsters and they're putting up photographs of themselves with Pogba. And don't forget, he's only 23 years old and these players are 18, 19, so there's only 4 or 5 years difference between them, but yet they still look up to him, which is remarkable, really. So what kind of a character must he have, or what kind of personality in the dressing room must he be?
Well, listen, you can see that he's got characterism. You know, we see him dabbing and all that with his little videos and whatever else after he signed for Man U, and you get all that. But then you see him at the end of the game in the interview with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and there's something there. You know, Zlatan's the older pro. He seems to me that he's bought into the mentality of Man United, and he's giving Paul Pogba a little bit of grief, and I think that's good. And you know, he will be. Although we're all looking at him as a leader, I think there's a couple of leaders in that dressing room. Most certainly it'll be Ibrahimovic and obviously Rooney being there. I think they're the two that run that dressing room.
And you mentioned Zlatan. Didn't upstage Pogba, but he did exactly what was brought to do, and that's score goals. That's 3-2 now, 4-3 if you can count the Community Shield. Has he already proved the doubters wrong?
I don't think there's any. You're always going to get doubters in whatever you do. All you've got to look at is his record throughout wherever he's been. He's won titles everywhere he's been. He's scored goals in everywhere he's been. It's just the usual English doubters. Oh, he's coming here, he's over the hill, he's this, he's that. He's instantly walked into a football club. He's a world-class player who's played at the top level for the last God knows how many years. And all he's done is he's gone in there. You know, there's not a comparison with Cantona, but he is the senior pro. People are looking at him for a bit of relief, giving him the ball in tight areas, asking him to hold it up. He's a big lad. He's a presence. He's not afraid to use that presence as well. He's not one of those big guys that we say, oh, yeah, he doesn't use it. He does. The goals that he's scored, the couple of headers that we've seen are purely aggressive. And it's something that Man United haven't had for the last few years. You know, we've talking about this false nine and Wayne Rooney this and somebody else that. He gives them a focal point, and I think they've needed that.
Mm. And is the fear factor back now, Simon? Do you think teams are going to be scared to go to Old Trafford now?
It's starting. It's not gone. Don't get me wrong. There's signs. You know, we watched the Bournemouth game, and you know, with all due respect, if you watched it, we weren't overly inspired in the first half by what they did. The players are now starting to get what Jose Mourinho wants out of them. I think Pogba coming into the side gives them another little dimension. They've got a phenomenal squad. Looking at the players they've got, and the players, you know, sitting on the benches there, they've got some real attacking force. If he can get that into play, then in 3 or 4 more games, if they can turn on a few more performances, then Old Trafford does become a fortress again. At the moment, still early days.
Absolutely. And talk to me about Fellaini, because that was one of the most disciplined performances I've ever seen him put in, not just in a United shirt, but also if you include Everton. You know, his positional awareness was fantastic. He was tracking back. He was winning the ball. He wasn't petulant. And he did what he was asked to do. I've got to hand it to Mourinho and Fellaini. They've really, really worked hard on the training ground for this.
Yeah, agreed. You know, Fellaini's been playing for Belgium, one of the best sides in Europe, in the world, let's be honest about it, seeded-wise, for the last couple of years. And at Everton, he was a force to be reckoned with in some respects. You know, David Moyes signing there, it was a little bit of... It was a big price tag there. And then you're kind of looking at him, we're playing, you know, Louis van Gaal's playing him up front, it was up to him. All Jose's done is probably put him in a position he can get around the pitch. He does break things up. Yes, he's got that air of petulance, which fortunately in the last couple of games has not been there. But like you said, he's been disciplined. He's kept the ball moving. He's broke things up. He's provided the protection in front of that back four, and he's fair play. The first 2 games he's played, he's been solid. He's been a 7 and 8 out of 10 man. And whether that's the influence of Mourinho of putting a square peg in a square hole and playing him where he should play, I don't know. Let's see. He's at the moment he's keeping somebody like Michael Carrick out of the team.
That's right. Now let's be honest. It wasn't all one-way traffic because Southampton had a few chances of their own. That being said, if I was a Southampton fan, I'd probably be very concerned about the club's future at the moment. I mean, if you look at Koeman, he practically created 2 new squads. I mean, that's no thanks to some high-profile departures. He invested wisely and he kept them in the frame for a European place. But when you look at Mane, Pella and Wanyama, they're all Southampton's key players for the past 2 seasons, all of whom were signed by Koeman. Now, Claude Puel's come in and he's got a lot on his plate right now, doesn't he?
Yeah, most definitely. They've sold players that were focal points in their team last year. Now, the 3 guys you've talked about were part of the spine, if that makes sense. You know, yes, you've got the other players around them, but those guys are the ones that you'd probably say carried the team last year. I think Koeman done a fantastic job. They lost players the season before, produced amazing results last year. I think it's tough this year for those guys to emulate what they did last year. They've lost those players. They haven't brought in players at the moment that do that. They've got 1 or 2 little injuries flying about, Ryan Bertrand being out. And they look like they're struggling at the moment. They look a little bit toothless. They don't look like they're going to score many goals. And I think that is the biggest problem in the Premier League. You know, we talk about defences and you can go on about the Middlesbroughs and Burnleys and how they're going to set up and this, that, the other. But you still need to score goals to win games. Palace are another side that don't score many goals. And these clubs are always going to struggle, and I think Southampton this year are in for a tough ride.
Absolutely. I mean, look, Shane Long, very good player. Charlie Austin is another very good player, and I know Nathan Redmond played up front, but like you, I don't know where the goals are going to come from. I'll be very worried. But then again, there's still another, 8 days before the window closes. I'm pretty sure they'll invest. They've got the money.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're working hard to try and bring in a couple of players. Most teams in the Premier League are at this moment in time. The problem you get now is that the clubs that are the selling clubs will invest, will bring those prices up a little bit more because they know clubs are a little bit more desperate.
That's
so
right.
Are people going to pay over the odds? I'm not so sure. Southampton are a club that will pay over the odds for what they've got.
Absolutely. It was a mixed weekend for those who used to be on Southampton's payroll last season. Ronald Koeman registered his first win as Everton boss in their 2-1 victory over West Brom, while Victor Wanyama netted the winner as Spurs beat your old side, Crystal Palace 1-0. Now, the scoreline at White Hart Lane doesn't tell the whole story. To be fair, Spurs could and should probably have had the game wrapped up by half-time. Simon, this was a more attack-minded, free-flowing Spurs than the one we saw last season, and their new signings, Janssen and Wanyama, have settled in really well. What do you expect to see from Pochettino's men this season?
It'd be interesting. He's played, obviously, against Palace. He's sort of played a two up front in Milan, as you're saying, Janssen and also sort of Harry Kane. So he's gone away from the sort of 4-5-1 that he played a lot last season. He's gone sort of to a 4-4-2 almost. So it'll be interesting. I think they've got a good squad. They've got some real good attacking players. They've obviously got goals in Kane and Janssen up front. So it'll be interesting to see him. I think the biggest thing as well is he strengthened that squad. I think towards the end of the season last year we saw from Tottenham that he played the same side throughout the whole season. I think that caught up with them towards the end of the season, and obviously caught up with the England players that went away on duty. So he's strengthened. He's brought in some good players. Wanyama obviously another one there, and it'll be interesting for him this season. I think they'll go close to breaking into that top four again.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned the system that Spurs play. I mean, what I noticed is you had Wanyama and Christian Eriksen in the middle of the park. Now, we know that Wanyama is strong, physical, effectively there to break up play. But seeing Christian Eriksen in that central midfield role was a bit foreign, so to speak, and pardon the pun. You're seeing Janssen and Kane dropping off each other while Eriksen has come deep to receive the ball. Now, why do you think this is the case? Is it to maybe, I don't know, keep him fitter for the whole season? Because he did seem to wane a bit at the end, didn't he?
I think he's the creative force in the Tottenham side. Wanyama is the one that breaks it up, but he can keep things ticking over. But I think you need a player in the midfield, especially with the likes of what you got up front there, that's going to find a pass. And I think he's just looked at it and thought, let's have a look at that. We talk about it 4-4-2. The centre forward drops back in there effectively, makes it a 4-5-1 at times. It's nothing different to what anybody's been doing over the last 10 years. But I think he just looks at that and thinks maybe he can get some games out of Christian Eriksen, then maybe drop him out and then bring him back in and float in and out where he played the majority of all the games last year. And I think maybe it's just something he's seen, isn't it? He thinks works best. I don't know. It's difficult without working with him day in, day out.
Fair enough. And Palace, they've only won 2 of their last 21 Premier League games in 2016. Now, last season, you and I, we often question Pardew's reluctance to invest in a proven striker with the right attitude. Now, is Benteke the answer to their problems?
He goes some way to it. We'll have to wait and see. He didn't play a lot of games last year. Obviously, since his injury, he's not played a real consistent run of games. Obviously, we saw him at Villa and he was at times quite frightening and difficult to play against and scored the goals. Flitted in and out a little bit at Liverpool. I think he needs to go to a club where they are going to provide him with crosses. I think he needs to get balls in the box because he's dangerous like that. It's not what Jurgen Klopp was looking for. He wants that all-action, hard-working sort of type centre forward, and I don't think Christian Benteke is that. But if he can come to Palace and get 10 to 15 goals, I think he'll do that. Again, it's an awful lot of money. But actually going the other way effectively to Everton to pay for, Benteke coming in. But it's current market value, isn't it? And if he can come in, he's obviously made his first game tonight, played 45 minutes in the cup tonight. So it'd be interesting to see. You've obviously still got Connor Wickham there, so there is some physical presence up front there for Palace. But we'll have to wait and see. They still struggle to get goals, and like you said, the record from the turn of the year has been shocking.
Yeah.
Probably, in some respects, and probably some fans are out there saying if it doesn't turn around soon, that Pardew will be once flavour of the month and talk about England of fearing for his job.
That'd be a shame because, let's be honest, when he come in, he made a big impact, didn't he?
Yeah, it's interesting. All of a sudden, from a typical Tony Pulis type team and whatever else, of being pretty defensive and a little bit hit on the counter attack, they came in and played some real free flowing football, were scoring goals, very entertaining. And I just think that once they had a couple of injuries and it got to that Christmas period and that little bit of confidence drained out of certain people, I think since then they've really, really struggled. You know, they're never big scorers since then, but they've also conceded some poor goals, and like I said to you, it's not a great record.
Now, going back to Benteke, you said that he wasn't the kind of player that Klopp was after because obviously, you know, the rock and roll style football, the heavy metal football as he calls it. Do you think that perhaps the shirt was too heavy for Benteke? And by that I mean the pressure that comes with wearing that Liverpool shirt.
I think a little bit, and I think he was a little bit unlucky at times. I don't think the setup and the way Liverpool play is what suits Benteke. It's interesting. It's a similar, you know, you can go back, Fernando Torres fitted in at a particular moment at Liverpool when it suited the kind of play they had. You had Javi Alonso and Steven Gerrard. They could find passes anywhere, and he fitted in. He goes to Chelsea a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical effectively, and he doesn't shine anywhere near it. I think Benteke's been a little bit of that. Liverpool are not renowned for getting balls in the box early, are not renowned for sort of crossing things, and I think he was a little bit of a victim of circumstance in all due respect. Could he carry it off? I don't know. I just think that Klopp's come in, he's got an idea of what kind of centre-forward he wants. He's got Sturridge, Origi, so on, and he just wants that all-action type centre-forward.
Fair enough. Now, Sadio Mane's shoulder injury kept him out of Liverpool's trip to Burnley. Each time Liverpool got forward, Burnley had 9 outfield players behind the ball with a pacey ground, the only man forward. Now, do you think this is how Dyche will set up his side throughout the season?
Yeah, I think so. I think he'll be organised and disciplined, and he'll know his limitations. He'll know what he's got and what he's going up against. Burnley have done fantastic. They obviously came up with Dyche, went relegated with Dyche. They stuck with him. He's strengthened the club, the training facilities. All of that's moved on no end for the last sort of couple of years, and they have to make signings according to what they have there. And I think that they'll set that way up. They'll look at frustrating teams. They'll look at hitting teams on the counter-attack with the pace that they've got. And, you know, if they can get an early goal in front, it'll be a difficult team to break down. Sam Vokes obviously gets a fantastic early goal there, and, you know, they don't have to come out and play then. They can let Liverpool come at them and try and meet another rate with that pace. And I think when you've got pace up front against any side, you're always a danger. That's a home game for them. And I don't think they give it any different going away from home. They'll see the big top 4, top 6 as effectively a free hit. And whatever they get out of those games is a bonus. And they'll set themselves up to beat the teams in and around them, or what they perceive to be in and around them. The newly promoted teams, the guys that are down at the bottom, the Sunderland, the Palace, the West Broms of this world. And I think they'll look at winning those games and picking up points against the sort of mid-table Everton through to, let's say, sort of Leicester this season, possibly.
And Liverpool's third kit has been compared to Bin Man's uniform, which is ironic because defensively they were garbage. Now, when Andre Gray scored Burnley's second on the counter, it was 2 versus 4, now 5 if you include Mignolet. That's 5 goals conceded in 2 games for Liverpool. That's hardly a defensive record to be proud of, is it?
No, and I think it's been highlighted since last season, hasn't it, that they've been poor defensively for all their great attacking play. They've, you know, we're talking about the left back still. That's been talked about, God knows how long. We've probably mentioned it 2 or 3 times on this show, haven't we? Now, You know, we've talked about the goalkeeper of not being a let's say a top 6 goalkeeper, of someone that's going to get you 10 to 12 points in a season. And I just think he hasn't gone out there and sort of strengthening those areas. And now we're talking about left back, centre half. We're still going on about the same things. Whether it's they're out there trying and unfortunately the market's not working or the price is overinflated, I don't know. But again, you can't have the mentality of Osvaldo or Adidas football we'll win 5-4 because it's not going to happen if we win.
That's right. Now, Diego Costa scored the winner in a game he should have been sent off in for the second game in a row as Chelsea came from behind to beat Watford 2-1, while Pep Guardiola's Man City proved they can do it on a something afternoon in Stoke. Sergio Aguero scored his 104th and 105th Premier League goals, one more than Didier Drogba, and has played 102 less games. Where do you rank him in the league's all-time goal scorers?
He's certainly up amongst them. You know, he's a centre forward that gets all sorts of goals. He's like you said, he's now got a bump Didier Drogba, who's sort of a legend in Premier League times. He's just, he's phenomenal, and I think that he's a big part of City going to do really well this season. If he gets injured, like he did last season, and like we saw, they struggled. They struggled for goals. He gets a hat-trick in the Europa, the Champions League qualifying, and misses 2 penalties, and then has the confidence to step up when the penalty's been given to step up and score it, and then gets a header. He's 5'0" and scores a header. That just sums the man up. He's a top centre forward, and he is at this moment in time at the peak of his game. And if Man City, who, to be fair, looked quite good against Stoke, which was a difficult afternoon. Stoke's never an easy place to play. The wind blowing, it's the horrible ground of Britannia, trust me. It's a horrible, cold, windy ground, and it'll go right down that pitch. And they were good. They took apart a Stoke side who are, on paper, not a bad side.
The thing is, the other day I stupidly made a comment on Twitter that Aguero reminded me of Romario, the way he plays in terms of his, he's small, he's got a quick burst of pace, movement is fantastic, and he's lethal in front of the goal. And our good friend Leon Knight kind of chastised me on Twitter, which led to a barrage of abuse from a lot of his followers. But what do you actually make of Aguero in terms of an all-round striker? Because he does seem like he's very difficult to play against. He's not one of these players that kind of, he's strong physically and backs into the defenders and makes it difficult that way. It's just that he just has this awareness around him. What do you make of him?
Exactly that. He's not. He's a strong. You can see that he's physically strong in what he does, and he can hold people up when he's got the ball in around him. He's not your big link-up player, and I don't think he'll be that. He's not. He's not involved in all the play that's going on. But when you watch him, he comes alive in the box. Any opportunity he gets to get shots off, he will. And I think centre halves can't stand those little centre forwards that make little runs off the back of people, across people. And like you said, he's got a great little change of pace. He's got fantastic dribbling ability. And I think, like I said, bigger centre halves don't like playing against him. And the reason is because he doesn't want to make it easy for him. He wants to be on the move. He wants to drift in behind people, get across people. For someone so small to score so many headers, it means he's always on the move because he's getting in front of people. And that's where I think he's a good player. He's a clever player, and doesn't get himself into situations where he wants to have a physical battle.
Do you think his son will be a footballer, bearing in mind that his godfather is Messi and his granddad is Maradona?
Got half a chance. I might have a bet on that one.
Brilliant. Well, Michy Batshuayi has made an impact in both of Chelsea's wins. Now, are we looking at the next great striker to play at Stamford Bridge?
I think he's got something, hasn't he? Obviously they've seen something in him. He came on in the Euros or whatever and got some goals there. I think he's going to be used as a bit part sort of coming on player. Costa's obviously had his injury problems and will have his discipline problems, as you've already mentioned, because that's him. He plays on that edge, but he's come on in the last 2 games and looked bright and lively. And I think if Conte can get the best out of him, Chelsea have been efficient. They haven't hit the ground running yet, but they've been quietly efficient, haven't they? And they've just gone about their business, not looked fantastic, but they looked organised, they looked disciplined, they've got a work ethic. And I think that's starting to come together, isn't it, of what you see. And he's going to be someone that comes on and starts the odd game and gives them that little bit of life.
Absolutely. Right, so I've decided to narrow the goal of the week down to 4 goals. And I'll let you be the judge of who's going to win it, Simon. So
okay.
I've gone for, there's 4 of them, obviously. There's 4 being Mirallas versus West Brom, Ibrahimovic versus Southampton, the header, not the penalty. Stiani's first against Middlesbrough, and Vokes against Liverpool. Which one do you choose, or is there another one that you feel should make it?
I wasn't sure if it was the Stiani first one or the second one. I actually preferred the second goal for Middlesbrough, purely as a bit of a build-up, a bit of football. That would be my goal of the weekend, if you want me to add that one to it.
That's fine, yeah.
I just felt that the strike, yeah, great strike, same gig, decent strike. Morales was some good football there. Who was the other one? I said, I've forgotten my head now.
Oh, Vokes. Sam Vokes.
Vokes, yeah. And I thought Ibrahimovic was a decent goal, good header. I just felt that that goal for Middlesbrough, obviously a great bit of play. Me as a midfield player was a playing into a front man, a little bit of a setback, reverse ball into Negredo, who done fantastic under pressure to sell the defender, sell the keeper, and roll it across to. I just thought that was a good all-round footballing goal.
I tell you what, Negredo will have a very good season, won't he? You can see.
Yeah, good signing, really good signing. No, that was fantastic at Man City, wasn't he, for that sort of 3/4 of the season? Injured his shoulder and then struggled to find that form again. And it was a strange one because he was, as they called him, the beast, and he was fantastic, wasn't he?
That's right, absolutely. So there you go, 2 weeks on the trot. We've had 2 build-up goals. Last week was Coutinho's second against Arsenal, which I believe was 30-odd passes. And now still on his second. Wonderful. Congratulations, young man. Right, player of the weekend then. So who do you pick? Because I've narrowed it down to Ibrahimovic, Wanyama, Stuani, Tom Heaton, or even Robert Snodgrass. Anyone else you got in mind?
No, I'd say you've probably got the majority of them in there. For me, I would say that. I mean, obviously we didn't get a lot of the game against Crystal Palace, but obviously reading tweets that are coming through and listening to bits and pieces, I thought it sounded like Wanyama had a fantastic game for Tottenham. So for me, I'd probably go for him. Obviously, Tom Heaton was great for Burnley, but I just think that for Wanyama, for the winning goal, and obviously he was a big presence in that game, I think I'd probably give it to him.
Excellent, wonderful. Okay, Simon, I'm going to test your football knowledge for the weekend.
Great.
I've got 4 questions and then multiple choice, so you can't go wrong. Excellent. So, how many assists has Kevin De Bruyne made since debuting for Man City? Is it A, 13, B, 14, or C, 15?
13.
Okay, I'm going to make a note of that and I'll give you the answers at the end. How many penalties has referee Mike Dean awarded since the start of last season? Is it A, 16, B, 17, or C, 18?
I'd go for 17.
17, excellent, okay. Now, Hull's 2-0 win at Swansea makes them only the second promoted side in Premier League history to win their opening 2 games. But who were the first? Was it A, Leicester, B, Bolton, or C, West Ham?
Leicester.
Okay, and the final question is, Leicester and Arsenal drew 0-0 at the weekend, thus ending the Foxes' winless streak against the Gunners. How many games is it now? Is it A, 20, B, 21, or C, 22?
20.
20, okay. I shall tell you at the end of the show.
Oh, brilliant.
Excellent. Right, so, in other news, the new La Liga season has kicked off this weekend and it was business as usual for Barcelona and Real Madrid, who registered 6-2 and 3-0 wins respectively. However, the big news coming out of Spain wasn't Atletico Madrid's 1-1 draw against Alaves, but the racial abuse suffered by Bilbao's Iñaki Williams at Sporting Gijón. Now, credit must go to the referee Clos Gomez for suspending play and Gijón for making the stadium announcement asking the fans to stop the chants. Simon, this isn't the first time Gijón have been in trouble for racist chanting. Will the Spanish FA make an example of them, or will it be another €3,000 fine?
They need to make an example. As you said, it's not the first time it's happened, and it's kind of, it follows Spain around a little bit, doesn't it? You know, it's not the first time it's just been at Gijón. There are other instances of, I think it was a couple of international games when they're going around and there was some racist chanting there. So again, brave for the referee. I think it needs to be stamped out. You know, it's been going on too long. These things are, you know, we've got cameras going everywhere. It needs to be dealt with, and I think they have to come down hard on them. You know, we get other stuff where they play games behind closed doors. Do it. You know, hit them hard in the pocket, and hopefully that small minority of fans will eventually get the message that they're affecting the rest of that stadium and learn a lesson, really. So
you reckon behind closed doors is the only option? Do you think maybe a relegation, or is that too severe?
I think that's too severe, because you're then punishing the whole football club based upon a minority of idiots, and I think that's a little bit unfair. Point deduction, possibly. I don't think relegation is the answer. I certainly think that financially hurt them, and by doing that you close the door. And hopefully the people that are in and around those idiots are standing in the same places week in after week and saying, you know, I've missed my week of football because of you guys here. Eventually, hopefully, you'll be able to stamp it out that way. But I'm not so sure. Relegation, a bit too strong. Certainly a game behind closed doors financially, and possibly a points deduction if it happens again.
Excellent. And over in Italy, there was opening day drama in Milan as an injury time penalty save from 17-year-old goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma helped decide to a 3-2 win over Torino. There were victories for Roma and Juventus, but Frank de Boer's Inter lost 2-0 at Chievo. Now, much has been said about how the Italian national team may suffer when Buffon retires, which is natural. He's a world-class goalkeeper, probably one of the best of our generation. But Donnarumma looks like he'll be ready sooner rather than later. What do you make of him?
I think it's been amazing. Since he came into the team, I think at 16 or so, he's been fantastic. He's kept his place on merit. There's other keeper, I can't think who it is now off the top of my head, he's the number 2 there, and he's keeping that team. So, is he the natural replacement? Probably. You don't see anyone else really challenging for that, and I think, is it too soon? Maybe, but Norman Whiteside played in the World Cup at 16, just under 17, so if the kid is good enough, he's old enough. And if Buffon does go, and like you say, fair play to him, he's been an absolute fantastic keeper this generation, and probably the best that I've sort of seen in the last 15 or so years. But again, they have somebody coming in there, and I think I would be getting him in, and hopefully he's been in and around the squads where he can learn off the people like Buffon.
Now, the thing is, tell me about Inter Milan, because when you were playing, they were a half-decent team. I mean, they're still good now, but nowhere near as good. I mean, back then they had, Ruben Sosa, Igor Shalamovs, your Nicola Bertis, whatever. But then you look at the squad now. They're losing 2-0 away to Chievo, which obviously is a difficult game, first game of the season. Frank de Boer has come in, replaced Mancini. He hasn't really put a foot wrong. What do you think is going on with this club? Because they're a huge, huge club, and for me, because I've got soft spots for them anyway, as our listeners will know. I've got a little bit of a thing for Inter Milan. So, why do you think things have gone pear-shaped for them?
Again, I'm not. We're talking about a club that 5 years ago were the European champions. So it's a real difficult thing. Again, are we not seeing them having a production line of being able to bring those players through the academies into the first team? They've always been a buying club, and they've always, the Milans and the Juventuses have always brought in players to sort of add to what they've already got. But they always had a core of what we would call solid Italian, who knew the Italian league, who knew how to play it, who knew the game management sort of side of it. I think they kind of fell away from that a little bit. Mancini's came in, won everything, dropped out, won a few bits and pieces, dropped out. There's no sort of long-term plan with these guys. Milan have had the same sort of problem, haven't they, with the change of managers constantly. And I think Juve's dominance has really put the script into, and it's a difficult one. I think they're used to being a superpower, and I think they're really struggling to be the sort of second and third teams in the Italian league. And I think it's going to be difficult. It's a sort of a transitional period that AC is just starting to come out of, and I think Inter are going through that now. What reason it is, I don't know. Did they not pay enough attention to the infrastructure, to lower down to the product line of 5 years down the line? And you're signing all these players we've talked about who are marquee type signings, but what were they doing further down? What were they doing to the grassroots? What were they doing in the youth system? I don't know.
And it just looks like Juventus are going to win. Well, they'll be the favourites, aren't they?
Yeah, but like I said, they've had their lows, and then they've come back. And again, like I said, you look at Juventus, they don't have a huge amount of stars. They have some really good footballers, the Pogbas of this world and people like that. But they sell a couple, they bring in a couple more, and they're not signing 40, 50 million pound players. They're bringing players out of the Italian league and bringing them into their squad and making them better. And I think that's kind of their structure, their philosophy at the moment is to do that. Yes, we may make a signing or two. They're not going to be 40, 50 million euro signings, but they're going to be 10, 15, possibly 20 million euros out of that Italian league to make the squad better.
And it looks like their nearest challengers, Roma, will be playing in the Europa League this season because they lost their qualifier tonight against FC Porto. Lost 3-0 at home. In the last 7 playoff games for the Italian teams in Europe, only one has actually gone through, and that was Milan. 1 of the last 7 years. Incredible.
Yeah, again, we used to see the Italian teams as the benchmark of how the European trophies were going. There was always a tournament team, weren't they, Italy? And the Italian club teams were always teams that would be progressing and always in that last of big competitions. And that seems to have adjusted now. Spain are always in and around there. We know who's won the Europa League the last couple of seasons. We know who's been in the last 4 of the Champions League. And it seems to be the Spanish have took on that mantle.
Fantastic. Well, Simon, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show again, mate. Really appreciate your time. Would you like to give our listeners your Twitter address so they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, it's at Simon Osborn 40.
Excellent. And you can follow us on Twitter at Shoot the Defence. Please give our sponsors, the FNX.Network, a follow at FNX.Network and My Sportswear, which is at My Sportswear1. We'll be back very soon. Take care, guys.
How did I get in the quiz? Check that bit, sir.
Oh, yeah, sorry. What am I talking about? Yes, so, you got 2 out of 4. You got 2 out of 4.
Rubbish.
Yes. You got no, actually no. Tell a lie. You said 13. It was 14. You said 17. It was 16. You said Leicester. It was Bolton, and you got the last one. So it was one. It was 1 out of 4.
Rubbish.
Sorry. Better luck next time.
Better luck. Yeah, must try harder. Yeah.
Cheers, mate. Appreciate it. Thank you.